sweat equity is a big basis, basically, of our strategy. That's how we started. And like for anyone who says like, how do I get started in build to rent? I always recommend house hack. And like, why wouldn't you? You get the opportunity to build your own house, like do it. And then just house hack it somehow, right? Add it in a basement apartment or whatever, in a unit above a garage. It can be difficult to get traditional lending on new construction because there's no tangible asset for the lender to consider when you're starting, right? You can start with our house hack. When you're doing it for your own house, it's easier to get financing that way. And then when you go for that second property, then you probably have like you force appreciation, you have a HELOC, and you can, so that's how we do it.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at TurboTenant and Ballpoint Marketing. These two companies are big supporters of the show, and they know how to work with real estate investors and help real estate investors grow their businesses. So be sure to stay tuned to hear how you can get, discounts and free stuff from them both. And as you probably know, all the profits from the show go to charities of the guest choosing. So when you listen to the sponsors on the show and you work with these hand-chosen by me sponsors, you're actually doing good for the world. Now let's get to the show. Natalie Cloutier.
Perfect. Well, ish.
That's
good
not,
enough.
Yeah, good enough. All right. Natalie with the French last name. How do you say it?
Cloutier.
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 Do you speak French?
Yes, I'm French first.
Oh,
really?
English second, yeah.
Because you're Canadian, eh?
Yeah, well, yeah. He did it on purpose. Yeah, so we're very close to the Quebec border where I am, so it's very French. We're in Ontario, but Ontario is very 50-50.
Okay.
50 French, 50, yeah.
All right. Well, so I know you. I've known you for a few years online, and we haven't had a lot of time to hang out in person, though I did see you recently at the REI Summit.
Yes.
But I know you as a new construction build to rent genius. We're gonna put it that way. Like, you are the person. Like, I literally asked my Instagram recently. I was like, hey, who do you know? Like, who's out there? Who's the person for like build to rent? And we had over 100 people comment that you were the person. So
that's
you have kind of a cult following with that build to rent, which is one of my, like, I've been talking a lot about these like 19 cash flow strategies that work in 2024. And one of them is build to rent. And so we're talking to a lot of people about the different strategies. You're one of them. So I know you as that. I know you have 29 units at this point.
Yep.
You've done almost all of them with no money down. We're going to talk about that today. And let's see. I mean, I know that you kind of, 4 fake teeth?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that.
I want
to hear the story. I would love to know more about that. But before we get into all that, let's go way back, and maybe the teeth story will come up in this. Who was Natalie Cloutier?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. This has been a year in the making because I got the invite from Stetson a year ago exactly to come on this podcast. And I was scheduled to come here in September 2023, but then the fires happened. Our resort canceled. We canceled the entire trip. And so I thought I'd come right back. And it's been
like
a
little
year
while.
after.
We made it work.
Exactly. So super excited to be here. But I am a French-speaking Canadian girl from a small town near Ottawa. So that's in Ontario. Which, by the way, for those who don't know, we were just talking about that. Ottawa is the capital of Canada. A lot of Americans think it's Toronto, so I'm just going to take the stage and clear that up.
I didn't even know Canada was a country.
Yeah, well, see, that's another thing.
Just kidding. Just joking. People are like, that guy's an idiot. Anyway, I thought it was like DC, like just a territory or something. Anyway, all right.
Huge, too.
It is very large.
It is very vast. And so we're close to the capital, a small town. I mean, there's not much to say. I come from a middle-class family, hardworking parents. Honestly, it's probably one of the best lessons they ever taught me was just work hard. And it's probably the secret to life. Like, in my opinion, working hard will get you out of a jam every time. You want to have a nice body, work hard. You want to make a lot of money, work hard. So you can probably just close the podcast right now. That's it. That's the secret to life.
Done. Thanks for joining us, everyone, today. We're excited to get out of here. No, I 100% agree. In fact, I think hard work, and when I say hard work, it's like the consistency and the intentionality behind it. It is such a superpower. And that seems silly. People are like, wait, everybody knows that. Yeah, but nobody does it.
No.
Like, the bar is so low for intentionality and consistency and persistence in any business that if you just do that, you're going to win.
What was, you posted this on, it was Mike Neubauer. He posted a video. You reposted it, or maybe.
Yeah, my team might have reposted it. Okay, somebody did.
But Mike said that the only two things that you posted this, or you reposted it, the only two things you need for success is to show up and to work hard. And he told a story about how he was doing bids for a pool, and like 8 people showed up the first time to talk to him about it, and only one person showed up a second time and actually gave him a bid. So he's like, that's the person I went with. And that's to be successful, show up and work hard, and you're you're
be
successful.
disciplined.
Yeah.
Too, right? Like you have to be disciplined. So actually that's like my favorite quote when you're going to ask me later the 3, 2, 1 questions. My favorite quote is to be free, you have to be disciplined.
Yeah.
Because you got to work hard, but if you like to work hard, you have to be disciplined to get you to work hard. You know what I mean? Anyways, so
which is the whole like when people ask me what the Better Life Tribe is and why I built that, it's like I've said a million different things, but I really had to boil it down to one sentence, like a few words. It's we help you get disciplined.
Yeah.
Because discipline is just like showing up, but then doing it over and over and over. And there's different hacks to get disciplined, like accountability and habit tracking. And like those things are designed to get you disciplined because most of us are not naturally disciplined.
Yeah.
Like I need some sort of hack to get me disciplined.
yeah, you need the motivation.
Yeah, I need some motivation. So whether it's watching, I mean, I'll literally will turn on those like kind of cheesy like YouTube videos that are like just clips of like people like David Goggins and yelling at you.
Yeah.
I'll like turn in the epic music behind it, and like I'll just turn that on.
Screamo. And
Yeah. And I'll just listen to that while I'm driving, and like it remotivates me. I'm like, this is great.
Screamo motivates me every time.
Every time.
I know we're going to talk about it later, but I love that quote. To be free is to be disciplined.
Yeah, that's my favorite quote.
Because that's something I am the person that wants to be completely free. And so like, I don't want anything on my schedule. And that actually creates more stress in my life because then I say yes to everything or I just have no boundaries when I have that.
And it's ironic that to be free, you have to be like militarily disciplined. You know what I mean? Like it's ironic because it sounds like it's the two would counter. Anyways, but yeah, that's what it is. That's the secret.
One of my all-time favorite books is Jocko Willink's Discipline Equals Freedom.
Never heard that.
I love that book. I recommend that to anybody. Discipline Equals Freedom from Jocko Willink. It's just every page is just like, you need to be disciplined. Like, yeah, do you see that donut on the counter? Like, just, yeah, it's free. It's sitting there. It's not going to hurt anything. It's like, yeah, it's going to kill you. Yeah. Like, that's poison. Like, be disciplined. Like, every page is like just very tactical like that. I love it.
It's delicious poison.
Yeah, exactly. Delicious poison. Maui Ona Donuts here in Maui.
My goodness. I had those on Saturday.
So good.
The bakery's here, right?
Yeah. If you go, while you're here in Maui, there's a place over here. It's right over here. You can do it today when you leave here.
Okay.
Maui Ono, like ONO donuts. They're made to order. The churro donut, the maple churro donut, maybe the greatest like donut on the earth.
They will trick you though because they're pretty small. And so
I eat 4 of them.
Yeah, exactly. But they're dense.
You'll die.
And so I've eaten 3 or 4 at a time. And at first I'm not that full. And then about 30 minutes later, I'm like, I want to die right now.
But like we just said, to be disciplined.
Yeah.
So I can't go,
Just
guys.
eat one. Just eat one. You'll be fine.
Yeah, we have a tradition now, and this has nothing to do with real estate, but we're gonna talk about it anyway. Donuts are a great conversation. We have a tradition every Saturday morning. We call it like Sabbath or whatever. Like this every Saturday, no phones. We all family, no work, no phones. The first thing we do is we get up and we go get Maui Ono donuts. We get 3 donuts, 1 for each kid, and then me and Heather share one, and then we go get coffee. And it's such a great tradition. And that way I'm disciplined and then I still get it, but I'm getting half a donut once a week.
And creating memories.
And it's like a thing to look forward to all week. And that's the whole point of Sabbath is what brings you joy.
Yeah.
When I think what brings me joy, donuts bring me joy. Donuts. But
I agree.
I just can't have one every day. So, all right. Well, speaking of donuts, let's talk about real estate investing.
Yeah, okay.
So,
cool.
how did you get the idea to get into real estate? Where'd that come from?
The idea, I don't know if it was ever an idea. Really, we were young. We met in college, and we studied architecture. Actually, so architectural technology. You're not like the architect, but you're like the CAD monkey or the architect, if you will. We were living in a condo. We had bought a condo. It was like we used the first time home buying incentive with the government. We bought a basement unit condo. We realized we don't like living there. Too many neighbors. Condo fees were always going up. And so my parents kind of told us about this loan. It's called an auto construction loan where you can build your own house with $0 down. And so that kind of got us nervous because we're like, okay, thought we'd probably be renting an old apartment. Like we had just graduated from college. And now we're going to we're owning a condo, but now we're going to build a house all of a sudden. My parents built 4 houses in 4 years before they had us. So they would build, move in, sell, build, they would do that. They did that 4 times in 4 years. And so they had some experience. My dad was a framer back in his younger days too. He would frame houses and then eventually he became an estimator and then had his own renovation business. And my mom had a daycare for 20 years.
My mom had a daycare for 20 years at home.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
we're
cool.
the same. High five.
Oh, nice. Except for me, it ended up being like the best birth control because I just never wanted kids. There's always kids in the house.
That's funny. Yeah, for me, I was always like, I just can't wait to have kids someday.
Oh, really? It was the opposite?
I loved it. I woke up every single morning, like, 7 o'clock, whatever, all through high school, middle school. Wake up, there's like 19 kids in my living room. And I just come out there and just play with them for a half hour and then go to school. It was a great way to grow up.
I guess as I got older, maybe when I was younger, no, you know what? I never really liked it. I remember. No, just too many people in the house.
Is the worst.
So when they told us about that strategy, we're like, well, we gotta do this, right? It's an opportunity to build your own house, and we could use like our design skills and design something that was affordable. Plus, they told us about house hacking too, which at the time I didn't know it was actually called house hacking, where you can put like a basement apartment and have tenants pay for your mortgage because we weren't making high salaries. Like we had entry level salaries. My husband was making maybe $32,000 a year back then. So we just jumped in. We did it. We designed a little 1,500 square foot bungalow. We still live in it today. We still love it.
Oh, no way.
We did that. So basically what that loan is that it allows you to replace your down payment with sweat equity. So you got to go in there. You got to do a lot of work yourself. But we had like some coaching from my dad, from my parents. They kind of walked us through it. We were super nervous. I remember Rob actually like threw up in the bushes the first day when the excavator got on site because we were just so nervous about what we were about to do. But we did that when we got the apartment. And then when we put the apartment in, we forced appreciation, right? With the $40,000 HELOC. We forced appreciation with the apartment, I should say. And then so with that, they gave us a $40,000 HELOC and we're like, okay, cool. Like we could use this. We can do this again. And so, we found another lot. It was like a problem lot. Nobody wanted it. It was like $30,000, which is really cheap in our area, even back then. And so I took like a plan from like my job. I worked as a house designer, a custom house designer. I did that for 5 years. And so I just kind of looked through my portfolio of houses and I saw, like, I could probably use this template, change it up and make it to fit the lot. So we did that and we just kept going. And then like 3 houses in, we realized, wow, we're investing. Like this is a thing.
Yeah. Were you building them and then renting them out, right?
Yeah,
at the beginning,
exactly.
So you don't build to sell, or do you also?
No. So the only thing we've done is we've built for clients. Okay. Like we've taken on like project management contracts, but we've never built to sell. It's actually my grandfather used to do that. So my grandfather used to be a developer back in his younger days. He would build, sell. And it's funny because I'm still learning about what his career was back in the day because I just bought 2 properties. It turns out they're sitting right next to properties he built right back in the day, and I didn't even know it. I found my mom would tell me after we closed on the property. So it's interesting. But yeah, he would do that. He never had any rentals. He even did a subdivision development, but in the 80s when the interest rates skyrocketed, he bankrupted, lost everything, and so he ended up moving into an in-law suite with my parents. And they stayed there their whole life. So I was actually very close to my grandparents my whole life because they were like my second parents. They were always there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What are interest rates like right now in Canada? Are they similar to what, like terrible like they are here?
Yeah. So right now the overnight rate is at 4.75. We just went down a 0.25 basis points. So we were at 5.
Okay.
So like the prime is like at 7 some.
Maybe a little better than what we are.
I don't know.
We're probably 7 right now, 6.5, 7.
But like our average home prices are a lot higher than yours.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I think yours, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you're at 430,000, 430K.
Yeah, in America.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, probably. I mean, Hawaii is obviously different.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But like an average.
That sounds about right.
And in Canada, we're at 750 with similar salaries, like at 60K a year. Yeah. So it's expensive. Yeah. And like another difference too, that I don't know if a lot of people know this, but in Canada, you guys can do the 25-year fixed.
Yeah, 30.
Yeah, okay, we can't do that.
Really?
5 max. You can probably get a 10. It's very rare. I've been told that you can do that. I've never seen it myself. So you can lock in for 5 years maximum. So yeah, like I just had a bunch of properties renew in the last year, and it sucked because it went from a 3% maybe to like a 6%.
Yep.
So it doubled. So you're constantly going with the cycles of the market, and you never really know. So you got to plan. You got to be a little bit more strategic in Canada.
Yeah. How do you calculate cash flow long term? I think that's the beauty here with a bunch of stuff fixed. Is that we've got 30-year fixed on at least 40 of our properties. So it's like forever these are going to cash flow. You know what
they are, which is awesome. But at the same time, I guess it has its pros and cons because when the interest rates go really high, then it's harder for you guys to lock in a property. You have to lock it in for 30 years or you don't have to, I guess.
Yeah, you can refinance if you need to. It's expensive, but you know,
right.
You're kind of, they say date the rate, but yeah, but still, I take the 30-year. I'm like, go America. We're not good in a lot of things, but I say we're good in that. 30-year fix is really nice.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, Your rents are higher, I'm pretty sure. Like, I would assume.
I think it depends on the location too,
Okay,
but
sure.
yes, I think they are on average.
Yeah.
I don't know the average rent.
Yeah.
What would you say like your house is like a 3.2 is renting for?
Oh, so a full house can be like 2,500,
Oh yeah.
maybe more, probably more actually. Depends again on the location and like the amenities and if you have like a septic or well or whatever, or how far you are from the city. Like right now we're doing a triplex. They're 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. 1 unit has a garage. It's walkout basement. That one's going to be the more expensive one. We could probably get 2,500 for it. I'm going to probably steer it more towards 22, 23.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What will your all-in cost be on a triplex like that? And then what would it rent for?
So it depends. Again, a lot of people ask me like, what's your price per square foot? I don't really have a price per square foot because it depends on the land itself, right? You can have a piece of land that might be needs more prep work to get the ball rolling, or that just costs more upfront or whatever. But like on average, I'd like to say maybe $180 to $200 a square foot. Again, though, like that's counting all 3 units. Like this triplex we're doing now, we might be at about at $650K, and then like $2,200 a unit average.
So you're maybe getting close to, maybe even beating the 1% rule, which would be like,
close.
Yeah. So if you were bringing in, ideally, if you're bringing in $6,500 a month and it was $650,000, that should cash flow. Maybe at 7-8% might not, at 5% might. Yeah. Probably should.
Yeah.
The one thing though with build for rent, at least from what I've heard from people, is that because you're building it's a brand new house, your maintenance and your CapEx are
way lower.
So much lower.
Yeah, but you still have to account for it because on the first year too, I find that there's always things that need fixing. It's like a new restaurant, right? Like the systems haven't been tested. There's always a few things, a few glitches. We'll get calls. I would say maybe not the first year, maybe the first 6 months, we'll get calls. After that, it's pretty smooth sailing.
Really?
Like our oldest property was built in 2016. Our house in 2014, but the actual rental property maybe in 2016. And I don't really have anything to fix on that one still. So it's been almost, it's been 8 years. So yeah, CapEx is definitely lower, but I still count for it because you never know. Especially those, like we have septic fields, like we have private septic. So you never know if something goes out in that. There's just more moving parts. But it definitely, like if you can, like the beauty of the build to rent is that if you can focus on low construction costs, you can skyrocket your net worth because the values are always higher than an older building, right? So it's like forced appreciation right off the gate.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
What are some strategies for building cheaper? Like how do you save money on a new build?
So I always tell people like keep it simple. Like your square footage, not your square footage, but your shape, your overall layout of the building needs to be really simple, like square, rectangular, whatever, because that'll follow with your posts and beam layout, your roof layout. Like if you have a complicated roof layout, the truss manufacturing of those is going to be expensive. The labor to install them is going to be expensive. There's more room for error when you're installing them or when they're fabricating them. So very simple, low slope roof. Plan your HVAC layout, your electricity all before, like meet with your electrician and make sure like your electrical panel maybe is closer to the road so that you're not digging a huge trench or your overhead wire or whatever. And it's also closer to the kitchen because that's where the bulk of your wiring is. Like basic colors, like as soon as you go for black windows or really like expensive materials, that's going to really increase the costs too. So I always tell people, like, you're not building for the Instagram post. Like I don't I know a lot of people, like I have a few people I know that they're starting to build and they're going with really fancy designs. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. It'll look super nice on Instagram. I don't know how your numbers are going to be though. Like I don't, like the last triplex we built, the budget was really tight on that because that was at the peak of the interest rates, and it was 2-bedroom units, so they were renting for a little less. So like the debt to income ratio on it wasn't as good. But so the budget was tighter, and I mean it kind of looks like a big beige cereal box. Yeah. It's very basic, but it's still new, so it still looks better than the like older properties around, right? And especially like there's ways that you can fancy it up a bit. You can make like little design add-ons, and especially like the tenants when they moved in, they added on nice flower baskets that makes the property look cute, but. It's just keeping it simple. And when you go see your designer, whether it's an architect or a draftsman like me, tell them you want a simple design. You want this structural engineer to spend the least amount of time reviewing your drawings. Because if you're spending $5,000 on a review for like a triplex for this, just the structural engineer, it's going to cost you a lot because he's spending a lot of time like sizing everything. So you just want to make sure that it's simple. You don't need the fancy building systems. There's a lot of ways you can build. There's not just one way to frame a building or to do the system. So you just want to keep it simple. That's the core rule.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say HGTV has ruined a lot of
Yes.
people's view of. I tell people all
Absolutely.
the time with flipping houses, especially like if you're in the $200,000 to $400,000 range, like HGTV is not realistic. You will lose money if you try.
I love when they're like, we're going to go to this fancy, vanity creation company and get this custom made vanity for the bathroom that's going to have marble. I'm like, no, you go to Home Depot. You go to Home Depot.
Home Depot, Wayfair, whatever. You get good deals. Whatever's cheap and looks good. I'm happy.
That's exactly it. Yeah. But those shows, like that would be boring for a flipping show. So they have to like go above and beyond. Everybody wants to make their house look like Chip and Joanna Gaines, but it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
One of my good friends, he was on an HGTV show in St. Louis, and he lost money on every single house that
I've got a buddy who was on a TV show too. Same thing.
He lost money on every single house he did because it's just not realistic. They had things that they wanted you to put in, but it's the same thing with I guess build for rent, where it's like you just have to keep it simple.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier, you said, hey, one of the properties you were building only had 2 bedrooms, and so it's not going to rent quite as high. Yeah. But if you get to choose, why would you have not chosen? Like, what was the hindrance to not going 3 bedroom? Doesn't seem like it'd be that much more expensive to add more bedrooms.
No, it's the size of the lot. It was a very tight lot, so we had to like just fit in what we needed, what could fit. Like it's very small units, they're like 900 square foot. So they're just smaller units, less outdoor space, a little bit less desirable than a 3 bedroom. Like there's more demand for 3 bedrooms, so people will pay more.
That's cool. Yeah, the reason I bring that up is one of my favorite things about build to rent, which granted I haven't done very much of it at all. I mean, we add units and stuff to our parks and our self-storage, but I don't do a lot of like new construction houses or small multi. But what intrigues me about it and what I love about it is that you can design based on current demand, not based on what demand was 40 years ago. So when we go out there and buy a property, you're in St. Louis, Cam's looking for a property, it's like, okay, back then, like this layout, this size house, whatever that was just what they did. So now you're trying to make an investment out of what worked 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. Where build to rent's like, okay, well, I know that 3 bedroom will do better than this, or I know that 2 bedroom will do better here. I know that I can separate the water if I want to. And now, like, you can't always do that on a small multi in St. Louis. Like, a lot of times the water's all mixed, electrical's all mixed together. So you get to design an investment from the ground up, like literally and figuratively, to be an investment. And that's what I love about it. And that's why I want to get, I want to get more and more into it.
It's funny because I remember actually you were on, you did a podcast once and you were like talking down on build to rent. You're like, I don't do build to rent. No, that's not for me. And I remember listening to you. I was like, dude, you should do it.
Well, the reason, and this is actually a really important distinction for people listening to a podcast is I will say things and other influencers will say things and podcasters, whatever, say like, I don't do this. And people take that as it's bad.
Yeah.
But in reality, and this is going to sound, I don't know, maybe arrogant. I can raise $50 million a year. It doesn't make any sense for me to go out and do single family or small multifamily properties because I could never do that kind of volume. So now I'm only doing a couple million a year, right? So in my position in this part of life, because of who I am, certain niches don't make sense. Rent by the room makes no sense for me. Yeah. It is my favorite strategy out there right today for new investors. So just keep that in mind. Everyone listening is like when people on podcasts say, they don't like stuff. There's always it's a personal thing. That said, I've been looking a lot into this, what I would currently call, I don't have a name for it. We'll have to come up with a name together here. But like build to rent business or build to rent X, we'll call it for now. So that's the idea of like not just build to rent, which could work just fine. But what about like build to rent assisted living or build to rent co-living or build to rent X? Like what's the thing that actually does work? And can we build to rent that thing? And that's what I'm going to look like. We're looking at Open Door Capital at potentially adding in like a build to rent, not assisted living, but 55 plus.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do is go into a neighborhood, buy a huge lot, and go put in 50 little 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes in a big U-shaped area. And then it's a 55 plus community. And so people move in there, no kids allowed. You can make that stipulation. And if I can build to rent that, well, now all of a sudden the $50 million a year that I can raise makes sense because I can build 20 of those a year in different areas. So that intrigues me a lot because I love build to rent. How do you scale it? And that's one way to do it.
Yeah, and that's actually very much in line with a major goal that I have. I would love, because long-term care housing, and I'm going to talk about that for the charity, but the long-term care housing in Ontario is a big, big problem.
Yeah.
And my like ultimate goal, and I don't even know how to get started in that, so it's like a pipe dream right now, but I would love to be able to add long-term care beds in my community because there's just such an aging demographic and there's no place for them to go. I think there's like 30 beds for 1,000 people over 65.
Wow.
So it's a major problem. And
it's
so,
a major problem here too in the US. It's horrible.
It's only going to get worse.
And
it's only going to get worse.
Care, like the standard of the care is like subpar at best.
Agreed.
Like anyways, that's a whole other story. But yeah, it's that's something I would really love to do is to build for long-term care homes. But that's a whole different approach, a whole different strategy. And I don't even know how to do it because I need to do it for like government funded version for the people who can't afford to pay for it out of pocket. Yeah. So
that's a whole different industry.
Exactly.
But it's, you know, I always say that quote Wayne Gretzky said, I'm successful not because I skate to where the puck is, but because I skate to where the puck is going, to use a hockey reference for a Canadian.
Yeah,
and he's Canadian too, right? Or
he is.
I met Wayne Gretzky.
Look at that. What?
I said I met Wayne Gretzky.
Did you really?
Yeah, he was a St. Louis Blue.
No way.
Yeah.
Man, wow.
Good old Wayne Gretzky.
Impressive. But I love that quote. It's like, where's the puck going? Skate there. Where's the puck going in America? There's in North America, there's tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of old people and nowhere to put them.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So we have that's where we're headed into a crisis, an affordability crisis for old people. And none of us want to put our parents in nursing homes. COVID ruined it.
Yeah.
Like we're like, there's no chance.
I think, and one of my buddies is doing this, is luxury assisted living. Where they're building a luxury, because it's not even for somebody that needs 24/7 care. It's for somebody that's 80 years old that can still get around fine, that doesn't want to move into a senior living facility, but they want to live in a house with other old people. And so they've got their own bedroom, their own bathroom, a really nice kitchen and living room, and you have games at. So I think that's but
how do you make that affordable?
That's
so
the problem.
It's not affordable. That's the
thing.
problem. Is that is for people that would probably be like Brandon.
Which is easier to sell to rich people than it is to the poor. But it's like you want to help with the poor, so like you have to choose your game, because like the game with the low income is like it's a government game, and that's horrible and annoying. And
but the problem is that it's not just the poor; it's just like whoever, like the cost of something that's not government run or whatever is like $5,000 a month. Like it's a lot. It is a lot. So a lot of people can't afford it unless you got like, all the kids pitching in, right? So it's just. You got to find a way to.
Yeah, I think he's at $9,000 a month per room.
There you go. Yeah, 5,000 is super low. Then
we're getting into some assisted living stuff, and we're 8,000 to 9,000 per bed. It's wild, but and that's why. And so the stuff that we're just ventured into, we're partnering with a dude on a couple deals right now. A good buddy of mine, but the way that he fills his beds is exactly like kids are chipping in and paying for the parents. It's all private pay, which. I'm not opposed to government pay, but it's a hassle. It's a hassle.
Major hassle.
And there's a lot less incentive. And so majority of the people don't go in that space. It's like you can go make $1 million a year doing luxury, or you can go $1 million a year making whatever, like doing low income or government assistance. And it's 10 times more work for the government. So governments need to figure out how to make it easier and more profitable for investors, for sure.
They do. But think about someone like you. Like, would you put your parents in where you're at right now in life, you would probably pay I'd pay
for the luxury for them.
Yeah.
I'd want something nice. And luxury doesn't necessarily mean like they're giving massages every day.
No,
just nice properties.
Just not like the property my grandma, because we lost my grandmother in February of this year, and she had been bouncing from one long-term care home to the next since COVID. And like we would visit those places, and you wonder like she'd probably be better off in jail. Like there's probably better care there. Like it's really really sad. So
would that be wild if that's what all the old people start doing? Just start committing to jail. They're just like just walk into a casino and just like bring a gun, steal something. They're like, oh, all right, take me to jail.
Honestly, it is a sad thought that's like not that unrealistic. Like it's one of my major whys for investing. I want to make sure that I can take care of my parents and my husband's parents because it is a scary thing to see them go into those places.
There's a lot of old people now that are living full time on cruise ships. Have you seen that? It's cheaper to live on a cruise ship. You get all your meals taken care of. You get your room cleaned. It's cheaper to live on a cruise ship full time.
It's less than $100,000 a year, I think, to go a cruise ship full time. And I mean that's cheaper than rent in most big cities.
But it's when you need the assisted living, right?
Which could I mean, once you get into the assisted living where you actually need help, that's when it really skyrockets, and that's when the government's going to have to step in, and they already do with Medicare and Medicaid.
Let's just do that. Let's just like start a cruise line for like assisted living, and
that'd be a great idea.
Let's do it. I'm in.
You could buy an old cruise ship and
restore it.
It's not the Burr strategy with cruise. It's not a bad idea.
It's probably bad, but anyways.
Yeah. Well, what makes cruise ships so profitable is that their labor is so cheap because they get them from foreign countries, where they can pay them $3 an hour.
Yeah, and it's probably easier to find labor too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so they're not paying $80 an hour to a person in the U.S.
I heard they don't have, because they're on the ocean, which isn't American. They don't have any of the labor laws.
Yeah,
they can work 20 hours
to
a day.
Yeah, it's a fascinating industry. All right. So speaking of charity, you mentioned that 100% of the profits of this podcast go toward a charity of the guest's choosing each week. So where are we sending the money from this episode?
Yeah. So since we're on the topic, I want to send it to Concerned Friends. It's a charity in Ontario that advocates for this whole long-term care situation that's it's very much gotten out of hands in Ontario. So I didn't know about them until recently. So again, like with my grandmother, everything we went through in the last couple of years, I started looking into it and I found them and I'm like, it's great that we have this. I didn't even know that it was a thing. So I really want to support that because there's not enough, like these people don't have a voice and it's like a 2-year wait when you need help and you end up stuck in the hospitals. And it's a big problem.
All right. Well, we will send the money to that. When we come back from the sponsor, we are going to talk about how you finance these deals for no money down. But let's hear from our show sponsor. All right. So I look down at my phone and I see this text. You need to call me. Your house is on fire. And I sat there and I'm looking at the screen and I'm wondering, is this some kind of a joke? The guy who sent it was a tenant I had been trying to evict for months and he hadn't paid in forever. He had trashed the house. I mean, it was disgusting. And the guy himself was, pretty darn unstable. Now, of course, I call him after that text and it goes to voicemail. Great. Now, a few minutes later, I get a call from the fire department. Yep, my first ever rental house was burning down. So how did I get myself in that situation? Well, I didn't screen that tenant. I put in someone I thought would be good, and he was until he wasn't. Now, this was over a decade ago, and since then, I've learned how to properly vet a tenant. And that's through Turbo Tenant, which makes screening for both background and credit really, really easy. But it gets even better. Turbo Tenant also helps you market your rentals to dozens of the largest sites, including apartments.com and Redfin. You can create custom leases that cover all your rental laws. And you can even use Turbo Tenant for your automatic rent payments. All of this for less than the cost of your Netflix subscription. Yeah, I know, crazy. Save time, save money, and save your sanity by using Turbo Tenant. And because you're so darn cute, you can use the code Brandon10 to save 10%. So check it out at turbotenant.com/betterlife. Hey, so many of you have heard me tell that story about how I bought my daughter Rosie a fourplex, like a rental property, the week she was born, and how we put it on an 18-year, mortgage payoff plan so it'll be paid off when she graduates from high school. So essentially, my tenants are paying for Rosie's entire college. Now that's pretty awesome, right? Not to mention, it's also making almost like $1,000 a month in cash flow. That's double awesome. But I don't think I've ever shared really exactly how I found that deal. So here goes. I found it through direct mail marketing. And here's how. I simply built a high quality lead list of a lot of names and addresses of potential sellers, and I sent out a whole bunch of mail to every person on that list. And then I talked on the phone to a ton of people, and then I finally got one person that was interested enough to sell me the property, and I got a deal at a great price. So building that giant lead engine like that, it works, but it takes a ton of time, knowledge, and effort, which can really slow down an investor's growth, which is why I reached out to my friend Ryan with Ballpoint Marketing. I asked him to sponsor this show because they're the best at doing everything that I just talked about. They're literally going to help you build your entire lead engine. You're going to get a one-on-one call where they're going to help you figure out what you want and then build your lead list for you. Their robots are going to handwrite the postcards with a real pen, which is super cool. They're going to send them out and they'll even answer the phone calls for you. Plus, they'll help you track it all inside of a CRM that they create for you. I know, it's crazy, crazy awesome. And it's going to help you land way more deals consistently. And because you're awesome and because you listen to this show, you're going to get a discount when you tell them that I sent you, or just use code Brandon when checking out with them. I love Ballpoint Marketing and officially recommend them to all my friends and masterminds. So if you're ready to kick your deal flow up a notch, getting more quality leads without pulling your hair out, just go to ballpointmarketing.com/betterlife. Or just shoot me a DM on Instagram with the word ballpoint, like one word, ballpoint, and I'll hook you up with them directly. All right, let's talk no and low money down strategies. So most people, when they're thinking about building, they're like, shoot, I don't have 20, 30, 40% down payment. So I know you said earlier in your deals, you did some sweat equity. Are you still doing that? Or what's your strategy today for building?
So sweat equity is a big basis, basically, of our strategy. That's how we started. And like for anyone who says like, how do I get started in build to rent? I always recommend House Hack. And like, why wouldn't you? You get the opportunity to build your own house, like do it and then just house hack it somehow, right? Add it in a basement apartment or whatever, in a unit above a garage. But if you can find a way to house hack and then, because the problem is that it can be difficult to get traditional lending on new construction because there's no tangible asset for the lender to consider when you're starting, right? There's nothing there. The land is empty. They don't know. There's more risk, especially if you've never done a construction before. You don't have any prior history. So it's harder to find someone who's going to accept that. So I would say if you can start with a house hack when you're doing it for your own house, it's easier to get financing that way. You get that history started. And then when you go for that second property, then you probably have like you forced appreciation, you have a HELOC and you can, so that's how we do it. Maybe there's a better way, but because that's how we did it, I find it's still today the best way to get started. Today we don't really do a lot of DIY, at least not as much as we used to. We have somebody working full time for us. We hire a lot more. Like Rob sometimes will work for half a day and come back. So that's awesome. But the way that, and they keep changing the laws on this too, and it's probably very different to everyone and to every location. The way it started is that they would, let's say you get your plans drawn up. And then you get them appraised. You got to prepare a budget. So you get all your estimates, prepare a budget, and then you send all of that to an appraiser. An appraiser will give you like the 3 approaches: the cost approach, the income approach, and then the market value. And then usually what they'll do is they'll lend up to 80% of the cost approach, which is usually the lowest of the 3 values.
Can you explain what the cost approach is?
The cost approach is basically what it would cost for someone else to build it.
Okay.
And then your income approach is like they're evaluating it as a business. So you've got the income that factors in. That's usually the highest of the 3 approaches. And then their market value is based on comparables. Cost approach is, I say during COVID, it was pretty high because the materials, everything, the labor had skyrocketed. But usually the cost approach is the lowest one and they will lend up to 80% of that. Sometimes it could be 60%, 65, 70%, whatever, depends on like the debt to income ratio, the interest rate at the time, your financial situation, what's backing it and all that. So they'll start with that. And then basically what it is that it's up to you to build it for that amount. So you have your budget and now, okay, what am I going to do? Do I need to do some labor myself? Although like I caution, don't do too much yourself. Like keep the specialty trades to the specialty trades, like the foundation. Don't go pouring cement yourself. You need it to be square. You need it to be like aligned. Don't go framing yourself unless it's what you do. If you're like a trades guy and you know what you're doing, awesome. That's cool. Even the plumbing, like let the plumbers do the plumbing. That's what the stuff, like it leaks. There's always problems with plumbing. So, but
definitely do your own electrical.
Your own.
No, but you laugh. But when we started, we would do all our own electrical because in Ontario, you're allowed. You can get an ESA permit. And you can do your own electrical if it's your own properties. You can't do it for someone else.
Okay,
but if it's your own properties, you can do your own electricity. And like wiring is actually really easy.
Wiring's actually pretty easy.
It's really easy. So
it's the one thing that if you do it wrong, you can burn down your house.
Your house is...
Well, not really. It's super safe now. And the code is so strict. Like if you follow the code, and you have to because you have those inspections that follow you at every stage. So it's really hard to burn it down based on electrical, in my opinion.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. So I mean, we did all our electrical for the first few builds, and now we hire someone. It's just easier. They have better pricing on the material, on the wiring, and all that. So it's less of a headache. So we hire for that. So you do what you can, and you build it for that amount. And if you can't, if your budget comes in over your cost approach and you have to leave in more money in, well, then it's up to you to figure out if your ROI is going to support it based on the rents that's going to come in. Or
so if you go the cost approach route, bank lends 80% of whatever that appraised value of the cost approach, but then you are able to do your own work, and let's say you hire out specialty trades, but you're like, I can put in toilets, lay floor, paint, do X, Y, and Z. You can do a house without any money out of your own pocket because you're replacing that with the sweat equity, correct?
That's the goal. So that's how we've done it all the time. We've never put in, the only time we've had to leave money was that last triplex I was saying when the interest rates, like the debt to income ratio wasn't good. So the numbers on that one wasn't great. We had to leave money in that one, but it was the first time. We've never let money. And if you manage to build below that budget, well, you're just pocketing that extra money, right? So very often too, at the end, if you can like refinance it and pull out more, even better, you can pull that and put it on the next property. The only thing with that is that now especially since the secondary residences and all that stuff, they want you to put in like they want you to bring the project to a certain percentage before they even lend you that first draw.
Okay.
So you have to have money set aside or like a line of credit or a private lender or whatever. And you just like, you got to get the build off the ground, bring it to whatever percentage the bank needs to see. And then they'll send you that first draw, and then you can usually pay your people back, and then you keep going based on the draws that you get.
How much would you say for somebody that's starting out, do you need either from a private lender or line of credit or just in liquid cash to get the project started?
I mean, right now my head's thinking 200K, but it depends. It depends on so many factors, because like very often we will buy the land cash because it's just easier than having to get like a traditional loan on it and then converting it into the construction and blah, blah, blah. So we'll just buy it out. And then that way too, we're like kind of setting ourselves aside from the competition who's also bidding on the property. Cause especially since COVID, we were in bidding wars all the time. So by saying like no financing condition, you go in with a stronger offer. But yeah, so we try to buy them cash. And then when you go to apply for your loan, it kind of helps because you've already put in, and the land in our area is like close to 200,000, right? For like, if you're in a good location, like the last triplex we paid 178. There was a house on it. We have to demolish that for 25,000, 30,000, whatever. So you're close to 200,000 in your starting cost. So right up there, you're at a good spot, but it goes by the value. So if the value is a lot higher, then you have to put in more, right? Your down payment increases, so you have to put in more money. So it's like a game you have to play. You have to, well, I mean, it's not a game. It just is what it is. You don't really want to skew the numbers. The numbers are what they are. But so sometimes you have to put in a lot more than 200,000.
How do you guys determine like this is a great lot for us to build a house or a triplex on?
So zoning, you got to check your zoning. Lately, so like I'm going to talk about ADUs. I don't know if you guys know what ADUs are, but additional dwelling units. That's like your golden ticket for build to rent. In the last year in Ontario, they passed a bill called Bill 23, which basically says that if the zoning currently allows for ADUs, cool, you can add on another ADU to that. So basically, let's say like just a quick example, you're shopping a lot, you find a lot that allows for a side-by-side duplex. You can say, and it allows for ADUs as well. Okay, cool. So I can do a side-by-side, and I can have an ADU in the basement, which becomes a fourplex. And now I can add another ADU on top, which becomes a sixplex. So that's like our golden ticket right now. So that's what we're doing. And you used to not be able to do that. But the other problem in Ontario is that the development charges are super expensive. So if back before ADUs were a thing, you would have to pay development charges on each unit, which can be like 17,000 to 30,000 a unit. So you can be paying a lot in just the permit up front, or starting with the permit. So now with ADUs, I'm just paying the development charges on the 2 main units, and then I'm not paying it on the other 4. So it's lowering our costs a lot. So for anyone, and like governments all over that's not just Ontario. They're incentivizing that because of the low shortage, the low supply of housing. There's a lot of programs that are trying to incentivize more densification and stuff like that. So that's a really cool thing. But also, I mean, we just know our area, like it comes with the experience. We know like what lots work, what don't. But you have to have a good relationship with the municipality, and you have to do your pre-consultation with them. So like I wrote an ebook too on forever, like I'm self-promo, but I wrote an ebook on the subject, and like I have a list of all the questions you should ask a municipality when you sit down. When you make an offer conditional upon building permit being to your satisfaction, and then sit down with the city, ask all your questions, be super upfront and transparent of what you want to build. Don't try to hide it, because they're just going to find out and it's going to have a bad rep.
This might be a dumb question, but when you say sit down with the city, I mean, what does that even mean? Somebody who doesn't, like, are you calling them, like, can I have an appointment with the city person? Like, is that what you're doing?
Yeah, pretty much. So I prefer emails though, just because I like to have everything in writing. So that if I come back on them later and they say, oh no, we never said that. Yeah, you did. So I like to do it in writing. But yes, sometimes when the project's a little more complex, then I will ask for a sit down meeting, and then I will send an email after based on everything we talked about. But yeah, definitely you have an in-person meeting with them, with the zoning committee sometimes. And sometimes a lot of places too, they'll say, well, you have to have a pre-consultation before we'll even give you a permit, because they have to maybe pass it through a couple of different committees.
Yeah, fascinating.
I think that's smart too, having everything in writing. There's been so many times where one inspectors came and said, yeah, this is fine. And then the next one that comes like, no, you got to rip all of this out. And we're like, well, we just talked to another guy that you work with and he said it's fine.
We literally just went through this. Yeah. So you have to.
Drives me nuts.
Yeah.
That said, ADUs are another one of my like cash flow vehicles that I've been talking a lot about. I love ADUs. In California just passed a new law that allows for them. I know Arizona's got it. I mean, it's like one state after another they're following.
They're
Hawaii's
following.
just, all of them, and I think all of them are going to do it. Like ADUs are it's seemingly the only answer the government currently is all in agreement on is a good idea. And so they're doing that almost everywhere. And I think that's only going to, again, it's the dominoes are falling across the country right now in a good way. Learning ADUs, I mean, it's $1 billion, probably $1 trillion industry is the development of ADUs. Whether you're turning an attic or a basement into one, or whether you're just adding a, separate house in your front yard. I think that's such a key to the low income housing thing.
And it's good for the housing environment too. Like densification is good. Like having 1 acre lots with huge houses on them do no good for the environment. So I'm pro that just for that. And a lot of cities have real strict zone like density complaints right now. They're like, oh, not enough parking or not enough this. Right.
And that was designed to keep large lots with nice houses and nice families that live in there. And so there are people that are still resisting it, kind of like the not in my backyard crowd.
Trust me.
But overall, I think there is a positive movement towards ADUs. And I think that what fascinates me about ADUs and build to rent is that you can, I have friends like my buddy Alvin, who's doing this right now down in LA, where you can buy a house that wouldn't make sense to them. I mean, he's doing it in LA, which is a horrible investment market. Buying a house in LA that has a large enough lot to add an ADU. So the property might break even as a rental property normally, but now you're building a house for, let's call it $200,000 that rents for $2,500 a month. It's like, that's a real good deal. That's like a 1.5%, almost 1.25% deal that actually cash flows. You're not paying for land. You're just paying for the thing. So now all of a sudden you have a real path towards like cash flow in an expensive market, which didn't exist before. I mean, that's how we, out here in Hawaii, that's how we survived for the last 100 years. I mean, everybody who lives here, just every house has multiple units in it. Like pretty much every house.
Well, that's awesome.
Whether legal or not, they're just everything.
One of our buddies just built Ohana on his property, unpermitted. I won't say who it is, but it cost him about $180,000 to put it on there, and I think that thing will rent out for $3,500 a month.
Isn't that wild? It's like a 2% deal. It's wild, and those exist all around the country. So I think there's
one of the best benefits of this strategy. And that's why we do it, because it's so hard to find an affordable property where there's enough equity in it to force appreciation with a renovation, with adding units. So by building from the start, you can you just figure it out. You customize it. You can make it work. Like even with us, with the interest rates that had to renew, we had one where we did a top-up deal. I don't know if you guys know what that is, where you take the roof off. We had a duplex in a really good location. It had like a 3% interest rate, but it wasn't cash flowing a lot. And then we were like, oh crap, we're due to renew this one at the end of the year. It's going to double in interest rate. Like it's going to be cash flow negative, but we don't want to sell it because it's such a good location. So when they passed that bill where you can add an ADU in the zoning, my husband, he just stood outside. He looked at the building. He's like, dude, let's take the roof off. Let's add on a third unit and let's put the roof back on. So that's what we did. And that was amazing. So we literally, we just they cut all the cords and we got a crane company. They cut the roof in half though, because they couldn't bring it out in one big chunk. But we had a crane company take half. But I have a video on that on my Instagram. That one went almost, not viral, but it had a lot of hits. It's really cool. So he took half, we put it on the front lawn, took the other half, put it on the front lawn, built up the third unit while it was super nice and sunny, and put the roof back on. And there you go. Now you've got a triplex, and it actually cash flows really well.
How long did that take to take the roof off, build up, and then put the roof
3
back
days.
on? That's insane.
Yeah, the prep work was the longest part, right? Because you're taking off the drywall, you're making sure everything's detached from the house. But that was awesome. And just the renovation cost was $145,000, but it appraised at $900,000. So we more than, because it was a little older. We built it in 2018, so the last appraisal was older, but still it appraised at $900,000. So the really cool. And we upped our cash flow because we didn't take the full, we didn't go for 80% of $900,000. It was just too much. So we just went for $425 to pay ourselves back basically, so that we didn't have to leave any money in. And now it cash flows. Plus we had a turnover, so now it cash flows $1,300 a month.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
What'd you do with the tenant that was in the second, or it was vacant?
We got lucky because they had just given notice that they were leaving.
Okay.
So and we were going to re-rent it. We had actually signed a lease with someone new that was going to move in May 1st, 2023. And then Rob got that idea, and I'm like, yeah, but I signed the lease. He's like, dude, just pay her to to push back the lease. And and actually the government had been on strike anyway. So she wasn't even sure she still had a job. She's like, no, I'm fine with it. Like delayed, it's cool. So we got really lucky in that sense.
That's awesome.
And we finished the renovation just before the renewal term was up. So it was a really cool project. That was one of my favorite.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. All right, so how do you and your husband work together? Like, what is his role? What is your role? How has that evolved over time?
Oh, that's hard. So it is a work in progress. It is hard. It's not easy, but we figured it out. Like separating roles and responsibilities is the biggest thing because you really can never be overlapping, and that's where the fights happen, right?
You guys fight?
Oh,
Running
no,
business
never.
Lexi and I have never gotten to it.
Yeah, yeah. It's really hard though, right? When you're working with your spouse, and it's hard to like kind of do date night is not a business meeting, it's a date night, but it always ends up being a business meeting because you end up talking about it. But so he's the site guy, so he like everything construction side, like his employee on site, that's all him. Anything that needs to happen, like he'll consult me, I'll give him my opinion, but like he gets the last word on that, and that's totally okay. For me, it's more so the whole design permit process, because that's what I did back in the day. Like I did 5 years of custom home design, but I would help the people with their permit application. So I did the whole zoning, like if you're doing minor variances and all that stuff. So I'm very, very good in that. Like that's my superpower, if you will. So I do that, like the permit process in the beginning, coordinating with the civil engineers, all that stuff. Again, he helps because he does have a lot of input, because I do the plans myself too, right? I design all the drawings. But like the part that we probably butt heads the most is when we're designing, when I'm doing the plans, because I need his input on how he wants to build it. Like, okay, how you want to build this one, how you want to do it. And then I'm like designing, he's like looking over my shoulder and he's giving my opinion. I'm like, dude, go away. But we're still working on that part. That is the part we struggle with the most. But everything else, we've pretty much separated the task. Like tenant management, we have somebody working in the office for that too now. We've got processes in the place. Actually, your book helped me with that. The yellow book. That one was good.
Thanks.
Yeah. So
my wife wrote that one.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, she wrote most of it. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Cool. Kudos to her.
Yeah, she does a good
I
job.
love her. She's a role model. We figured all that out. But it still collides every now and again.
I think what you said, and it's so important, because working with your spouse is one of the best things ever. I mean, I absolutely love working with my wife, but we had to separate our business to be, this is what I own, this is what you own. We don't overlap, because when we overlap, that's when fights happen or tension happens.
Yeah. And you kind of have to have business hours. You know, like, okay, after 5 p.m., the phone goes outside the house or in a box. And then that's it. Like and we haven't done that. And like I said, we just had our anniversary, and we were talking about like what we should be doing better in the next years, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, let's ditch the phones after 5 p.m. Like when we get home or whatever, when the kid is at home, because the kid knows too, right? The kids know when you're not being present, you're on your phone, like they'll act out. And so, and just before, and just before coming to Maui, we were like, trying to get everything ready before we had a bunch of stuff. Like we just partnered with someone. We were trying to figure out a JV agreement, or bought 2 lots. So I like, it was bananas. It was super busy. So I sent him to daycare a little bit. Like usually he goes to daycare 3 days a week. I sent him 4 days a week. And then at night I was still like working, being on my phone. And Rob was like, dude, he's not listening to me. Like he's acting out. And I'm like, you know what? It's because we're not present. We're not. And like just now that we've been on this trip for 5 days now, and it's like a complete flip. He's super happy. He's the sweetest, but it's because we're one-on-one with him. We're actually really present. So I think that's something that like with your spouse and with your kids, business hours, super important.
Yeah, that's a great tip. What's it like being a mom?
Yeah, mom entrepreneur. I knew going in that being a mom was going to take up a lot of my like headspace and my attention away from the business, because, you know, pre-kids is hustle time. Like that's where you, probably the first 8 years of running our business, like before I had my kid, 80 to 90% of my attention was on the business. That was my baby. And then the other like 10 to 20% was with family. So I knew that being a mom, it was going to pull my focus. What I didn't anticipate was how much of a failure I would feel in every department of my life, because I couldn't put like 100 or 90% of my attention on each thing, right? So whether it was the business or my kid or my relationship with my husband, I was always being pulled. And like every mom can relate to this. Like you're going into a meeting, you've been preparing it for a week, and then you get a call from daycare that he's sick and you have to come pick it up. Like it's hard. So what I'm starting to get the hang of it. First of all, I hired a VA, a virtual assistant.
Yeah.
So that helps a lot. It helped free up my time from like the mundane tasks. But then what I realized after that is that more time you have, the more like entrepreneurs are accomplishments junkies, right?
Yeah.
We're always looking to fill it up with more goals and more accomplishments. So, okay, cool. I'm free of that time, but now like I want to do something else. Like I'm working on trying to publish my book now and making like legit. And so, I was always being pulled, and then I read 10X rules, and it was like time blocking was like, okay, I need to time block. So my kid goes to daycare 3 days a week. So those are my 3 focus days. Then the other 2 days in that week are my buffer days. So I'm spending time with him, but during nap times, I'm working on my stuff. And then on the weekends, it's our rest time. It's our family time. So, and then the other thing too is that because I was always looking at what I had to do next, I was always focusing on my to-do list and what I didn't get done. I had to kind of change my mindset and say, okay, instead of looking ahead, I got to look back at what I accomplished. So during those days when he's at daycare, if I get 8 hours, I do my 8 hours of work. I shut down the background noise and I focus. If I didn't get done what I needed to get done, it's okay. I have to accept it, and I have to just look at what I did accomplish, and it makes me feel so much better than looking ahead.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just changing my mindset.
It's like Gap in the Gain. Have you read that book?
No.
Yeah, Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan wrote Gap in the Gain, and it's like if all you're doing is looking forward to the gap of what you're missing, you're always going to be sad. But if you look at what you've gained and how far you've come on anything, that makes happiness and makes you actually more successul.
Yeah, it makes you more motivated. You feel like, okay, I've actually accomplished something.
I've done something. Look at this. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's been a big game changer. And I feel like because of that too, like I just feel like I can be more present after hours when my kid is at home after daycare, that I can like, I've accomplished, I'm good. I've organized my day for tomorrow. Now like it's kid time.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. You got something? I got something.
You got something. You got it.
All right.
Yeah.
Social media. I want to go there real quick.
Okay.
Because we're gonna move toward the pivot and all that stuff here in a minute. But
okay,
what's the point of your social media? Like, why do you do social media? You're growing quickly. You've been super successful at it. But what are you doing it for?
I honestly, it's just before it started, I just really liked networking with like-minded people. I just loved it. Like I met a bunch of people. There's like these girls we call us, I don't know what the name is. Anyways, we meet every like quarter. We haven't met in a while, but from all over US, and we talk, and it's just really nice to have that community vibe because I don't have that with my friends at home. Like I don't have a lot of investor friends or even my family. That's like what we talk about. And you know, when you're a real estate investor, you're kind of obsessed with it and you like to talk about it and you want to grow and you want to learn. So it started as that. And now it's more like, well, you know what? I think it still kind of is that for me, but it's also growing your network. It just opens up more doors, more opportunities. Like I'm here today. I would have never been here if it wasn't for Instagram. So this is a really amazing opportunity for me. This is awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, networking and community vibe, that's my reason for doing it.
It's awesome.
Very cool. And then what about long term? Where do you see yourself headed? Do you want to get into bigger projects, building apartment complexes, things like that? Or do you like where you're at?
That is a very hard question for me to answer because I go back and forth on that. I get the days where I'm like, dude, let's sell everything and move to Maui.
Yeah.
That's what you should do.
Yeah, it's tempting.
Good.
It's tempting. My Rob was shopping on Zillow the other day. Anyways, but yeah.
I'll sell you my house. I'll make a good deal.
Whoa, no.
I'm in.
Yeah, good deal. Nobody wants it, so I'm just saying, I'll sell it to you. I don't know. I just I can't.
4 unit. I'm in.
It's a great
He's
property.
gonna sell it to me for $1.3 million.
I don't think that's true. I think I paid more than that.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah,
I remember you talking about your house. You paid way more.
Cam wants my house. I'm
gonna buy it.
We'll see if I sell it to him.
Okay,
I might
we'll
sell it
fight
to you
you for
instead.
it.
Yeah. But we're gonna put an auction right now. Whoever pays me the most money right now can have my house.
You start first.
1.8.
Oh, that's a terrible idea.
2.1. You already said it, dude. You already said it. 2.1.
I gotta sell everything if I go for 2.1.
Done. Done. That's it.
We'll talk about it later. Maybe I'll come back. I'll talk to Rob.
All right. So where do you think you're gonna head then?
So right now we're working on a bigger development project. We have a lot that we bought it in 2020. That's a big problem in Canada. Like just the development process, like the permit application process takes so long. It's such a nitty-gritty. Anyway, so we've been working on that. It's supposed to be a 24-unit development, and we have like another property just beside that's owned by our electrician. We're going to do the exact same property. So it's going to end up being like a 48-unit development, but we're going to own 24. He's going to own 24. And so we've been working on that. We're just going to start with a 6-plex. We're going to grow and we're going to add in 9-unit buildings because it was just easier to get the ball rolling with a 6-plex and get the permit approved sooner. So sometimes we think about doing more of that. And now we just partnered with someone where we're going to do a couple sixplexes too with them, and just try to grow faster. The goal for Rob is to have like a construction company rolling. He wants to have, replace him, have another Rob on site so that he can be more focusing on the big project. And I get it. I'm all in. But at the same time, I wanted to take 2 years off. I wanted to just like put the business on autopilot, take 2 years off and travel the world with our kid before he starts school. But then it's hard to do that when you don't have the staff to support it, to put the business on automation. So we're like in that limbo stage of like, what do we do? I think we're going to keep growing for now and take that 2 year off maybe in another couple of years.
You bring up a really good point though. There is kind of that limbo stage when you're trying to scale. Because I was there too for a long time. It's like you're not big enough to hire a whole team to do it for you, but you're big enough that you're working full time. And it's like, how do you get into that? How do you get over that bump? And I don't have a great answer for how to do it other than it's just like, you just do it. So like, for example, when let's say you were going to go much bigger, you have to go raise capital then at that point. Okay. So let's say you're going to I'm going to do 10 million a year. You're going to raise 10 million to buy 20 million worth of real estate. Okay, so in order to do that, you're going to need a full-time person just to handle investor relations. And you're going to need, whatever, this role, probably 4 or 5 roles to be able to do that. And then when you build $20 million worth of real estate, you're going to get a 2%, let's call it acquisition fee, and a 2% development fee. So 4% on $20 million is what, $800,000? So $800,000, if I'm doing my math right, $800,000 then can cover the salary for 5 people making $100,000 a piece. And now you got $300,000 left for you to oversee it, but you hired 5 people, including one of those is like a COO running the whole thing. And so then the danger there, I did this and it worked for me, but the danger there, of course, the team doesn't execute the plan. They don't buy 20 million. But I guess that's the risk, is like you just say like, we're going to. And if you hire the right people, like I got lucky, I hired the right people. Yeah. I brought in the right people, we changed them out, we got some new people in, but we didn't buy the 50 million we needed to pay our salaries. We bought 300 million and now we're up to $1 billion. So it does work that way. So I guess my encouragement to you and everyone listening is like, it might be worth just making that jump and saying, I'm going to do it. It doesn't have to be salaries either. I paid everybody equity at the beginning. Yeah, it cost me money, but then they got a piece of that acquisition fee and the development fee as part of their salary. So in other words, I didn't lose anything. If we didn't buy anything, I didn't lose anything in the beginning. So
plus you had the added pressure that now that you've hired people, you have to deliver. You have to deliver because they're counting on you.
Which is both good and bad. The danger, a lot of syndicators like myself, what we do is we hire a big staff and now we have to buy real estate and that leads to bad decisions. And so we've been working really hard and we're basically there right now. It's where we don't have to buy deals anymore because I don't want anybody going, oh, this is not a great deal, but we can't make payroll next month unless we buy it. Like, not that we've ever done that, but like there's a tendency to subconsciously do that. And
just to make
there are syndicators out there that are doing that.
There's definitely syndicators. There's people buying private jets and helicopters with their company syndication and like their acquisition fees. I won't name any names. I won't name any names, but there are people who do that, and I don't know if they're doing that. I'm sure they are.
There's somebody you're thinking of
because there's no money in syndication in the beginning. So if you're making money as a syndicator, you're just living off like it's acquisition fees. There's not, or whatever fees you put in, because a syndicator and people raising capital, you make money at the end. So same with developers. If you're making money developing, you're not making money on the investment. You're making money off fees, which is fine to pay the bills. But I question helicopters.
But one of the things that I see in you, and it's one of the reasons that I trust you with my life, is you say that with your investors. You don't make money unless they make money. On the back end.
Yeah, and it's a sales pitch, but it's a true sales pitch. Yeah. It's like I chose not to make any money from open door capital, and I donate my salary away so that my investors are like, oh shoot, yeah, he's in this. And I think that like if you can do that because you have enough cash flow from other things, which I do, it just puts you a leg up. So if you can do that, then you get the right team. And then you just get them a goal. Hey, a goal, you guys, is $20 million this year we have to make. And then the beauty of that, by the way, also is right now you're doing everything, or you and your husband are doing pretty much everything, and you have some employees here and there. Yeah. All of a sudden you find the best guy in the world to run acquisitions, the best person in the world to do investor relations, the best person in your world to do, finance. And then they're way better than you at everything.
Yeah. One of the things for us that we did, because we were so ingrained into our business, and I was that person that was out walking properties and going and checking on rehabs, and we wanted to move to Maui. And this maybe was really dumb, but we just did it. Like we were like, hey, we're going to do it and figure it out. Yeah. But now we have Josh, who is our head acquisition manager, and he is crushing it. Steve is the most incredible project manager. Like, it all worked out. And I think the only way we could have gotten to where we're at is by forcing us to be able to do that. If we just stayed there, I would have still been doing acquisitions and going and walking 30 or 40 houses a week. And the only way I could get out of that was like to force myself.
Yeah. I feel like that was the template of my life. We just did it. We just figured it out.
Yeah, burn your ships, just jump in, do it.
The funny thing about that phrase, the burn your ships, that everyone uses, and I just use it now, is like, like, hey, burn your ships and I have no choice. What the story came from is that whatever guy burned the ships so that they have no choice but to win, they just all died. They all got slaughtered.
I didn't know that.
I actually think the story was actually a fake story. It never actually happened. But I like the ending of they all just died. And so you shouldn't burn your ships, but you should.
Horrible story.
But at least they tried.
At least they tried. You know what? They tried. And they might be dead, but they tried. But there is such value. Like you forced it. I had to sell my tools. I've told that story before. I sold all my tools because I could not stop doing the work. Yeah. Because it was just like, I'm not going to pay a plumber $1,000. I can do this in an hour. Yeah. And then 8 hours later, I'm like, I should have hired a plumber, right? Oh yeah. So by having no tools, I had no choice but to give up that. I had to burn those ships, and it worked for me. Yeah. Now I started collecting tools again, so I started doing my own work.
But it's like hobby work.
Yeah, more hobby work. Yeah, but. Yeah, sometimes I still hate it. Anyway, all right, we got to move on. Last question before we get to the 3, 2, 1 pivot. Why do you have 4 fake teeth?
Okay.
Ooh, yeah.
So it's funny because, it's whatever. It is what it is. When I was younger, my teeth were so crooked that the 2 teeth, I don't know my tooth names, but the 2 teeth on the side of the big frontal ones, they never grew in. So there's like just no teeth there. So I had braces when I was like in high school, and there was like this gap. And so they had to put like a spring to go over that gap. So I remember like I was laughing and I have to go like to put my lip like over the spring. Man. So yeah, super fun times. So eventually like after the braces, they had to put in like crowns to make the teeth. And then later on, like the overbite, like these ones started to chip a little bit, the 2 big ones. So just last year, I was just, because your mouth keeps changing, your teeth keep like growing and whatever. So they were just due to be redone. So I had them all redone last year. It cost me a lot of money, but it's kind of like a nice story to life. Like things might seem perfect on the outside, but you never know the work that had to go behind it.
Well, your teeth look great today.
Thank you.
So good job. All right, let's head over to the 3, 2, 1 pivot. The idea of a pivot is your life is headed one direction and something changes it to go in a different direction a little bit. So we're going to talk about books, people, and quotes. So let's start with 3 books that have changed the direction of your life. 3 pivot books.
All right. I don't want to mention Rich Dad Poor Dad, but it is one. But I'm not.
It's one of the best. It is.
Yeah, I almost quit before, and then we went on a 5-day like trip because I wanted to quit. My husband just slipped me that book. He's like, read this, and by the end of the trip, I'm like, let's keep doing this.
Yeah, that's cool.
But no,
so did you get into investing before you read that book?
Yes. Oh. We were already 3 houses in.
Gotcha.
And it was a lot of work. And at the end of the 3rd house, I wanted to quit. And we had just bought another lot and we were going to keep going. And so Rob's like, read this book. And so that kept me going.
Do you know Ryan Murdoch still has not read Rich Dad Poor Dad?
He's one of those guys that just wants to do everything different from everybody else.
Exactly.
So he will not read that book just out of principle
out of spite.
But anyway, I don't even want to count that one in because it's been over-mentioned. So, the first book I actually want to, because a lot of people suffer from anxiety. Not a lot of people talk about it. I used to suffer from anxiety a lot. So the Panic Attack Workbook is one that I loved because it kind of talks about, and I just listened to it. I did the audio version, but it talks about how you have to disclose your anxiety instead of trying to hide it from people, because hiding it and repressing it just makes it a lot worse. So for me, that was a big pivot because it really helps me understand like the science behind my anxiety and like how to better manage it. So that one was a good one. The other one, I always butcher the title of this one. I sound like you. You always say that. It's called the Secrets to the Canadian Real Estate Cycles. And like you can be American and still read it. It's really cool because it talks about how like there's 4 cycles of real estate. I don't know if I'm going to remember it. The boom, the slump, the recovery, and the peak. Wow, I remember them. And so you kind of have to recognize which cycle you're in and adapt yourself and just be a more sophisticated investor and like just understand that it repeats, right? History tends to repeat itself in different ways. So that book was really cool because I read it just before COVID. And so we kind of had time to sell a couple properties and kind of like clean up our portfolio of like non-cash flowing properties. Like we had a couple single family homes that didn't cash flow. So we sold those and we just like reinvested into multi-units and better cash flowing properties. So that one was a really good book to understand the cycles. And I recommend that even if you're American, like it applies to both because it's very similar. Like the trends are the same. And then the third book was the 10X rule because it just helped me time block and just be a better mom in general.
Yeah, I love that book,
Yeah.
too, the 10X rule.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, two pivot people. Who are two people that you have met, encountered that have changed the direction of your life?
So I guess more like just impactful people. So my parents, I've always been very close to my parents, but my mom, more specifically, she's my rock. And I get like super emotional every time. I don't know why. She's very
That's
close to me and, very strong, opinionated, stubborn lady, but very selfless and very, she's just awesome. I don't know. She's very strong. So, to me, like my mom, she's my business coach. She's my life advisor. She's everything. So she'll always be a big impact. And then the second one is, well, my husband, Rob, when I met him, I was young, just out of high school. I was still in my little bubble of high school world, my little town, right? And so he kind of showed me a new world in a way where it was like, he opened up my mindset to like be accepting of more people, more situations, not, when you can't control situations, that just accept them. And he also took me overseas for the first time without my parents. Because like I said, I was very close to my parents, so they always were very near me and I always traveled with them. And then for the first time, he took me overseas and I had like a big panic attack just for going on the plane. He like almost had to drag me on, right? But I'm glad I did it. And like I think that's why I had anxiety in the first couple of years of business, because like Rob and I were we were starting this big business of building and all that stuff. And I was going, you're leaving the nest and you're doing things without your parents' support. So he showed me that, you can do this, and he gave me confidence. And so for me, that was, and he also like showed me to have my own opinions, because again, it goes back to my parents. I'm not saying like it's not bad. It's just that because we were so close, I had a hard time forming my own opinions. Like I would always go for what they said and just, their opinions were what I value the most. And then he was like, I'm not saying they're wrong. It's just that there's always more than one way to do something. Yeah. And so it forced me to create my own opinions and have my own thoughts and stuff. So for me, no matter what, he'll always be a major impact on my life. So yeah,
That's
my mom
awesome.
and my husband. Yeah.
Where'd you guys meet?
College.
Okay.
So he's from a town about 8 hours north of Ottawa.
Way up there.
Yeah, way up there. And he came to Ottawa to study. So we studied the same. And he had no idea I was into him. I thought he was cute. He was funny. He was like the class clown, and everybody was friends with him. And he was completely oblivious to the fact that I was cruising him. And eventually I just texted him and he's like, oh, okay, cool. And so yeah, we went on a date. Remember, we went to Wendy's on our first date, and he wanted to take me to the Keg, and I'm like, and I knew he was on a budget. It's funny. I'm like, let's just go to Wendy's. I'm like, doesn't have to be super fancy. So he was excited because he couldn't afford the Keg. So we went to Wendy's, and he's like, well, at least sit in the booth and I'll go get the tray. And he pulled out the tray and he dropped the tray of food everywhere. He's going to kill me for saying this, but anyways, I thought it was hilarious. I couldn't stop laughing, and it's just,
that's a great story.
Yeah,
I
been
love
together
that.
ever since.
Did you get a chocolate Frosty and dip the French fries in it?
I've
Did you call
never
them French
done
fries?
that.
Oh, so good.
That's genius.
Wendy's fries with a Wendy's
It's a thing.
Frosty.
Yeah.
It is so good.
Damn.
We should get one today.
Yeah.
I might get one today.
I mean,
No.
I haven't had fast food in 2023. Or
Oh.
2024, sorry.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
2024 now, aren't we? Yeah.
It's impressive, man.
But
Wish I could
I
say the
could break
same,
that.
but
Yeah.
I
today.
had McDonald's 2 days ago. No, before that, while traveling.
All right. Love it. Now, what about a quote? Let's change the direction
So
of your life.
to be free, you have to be disciplined. I
Yeah.
just have to go with that one.
yeah.
What's the secret to discipline?
That's a hard question.
That's why I asked it, because I have no idea.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say. Well, I mean, it's work. Yeah, it kind of coincides with working hard, but consistency, showing up. I don't know.
Yeah.
You have to. You know what? I think it has to be. You just have to have a big enough why. You have to have a big enough motivator, or else what's the point?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been working on redesigning the whole the Better Life onboarding experience when people join the tribe, and this thing we call REIOS, which is like the Real Estate Investors Operating System, and there's all these components. But a big piece of that, actually, the very first thing you do now when you join the tribe is something called Why Are You Here?
Okay.
And it's not why are you in the tribe, but why are you trying to improve your life? Like what in the whole purpose of this practice that people go through, it's like 7 questions designed to really get down to like what's your motivation? What can you hold to? What's that rock in your life? That because discipline's hard.
Yeah.
And discipline's really hard. But if you've got a reason, if you want to look good so that girls will check you out, Cam. Like that's not gonna you're not gonna go to the gym for that, right? Because it might feel good in a moment, but like you're not gonna stick with the gym for 5 years to do that. I want to live long so I can see my kids grow up and see their kids grow up. That's a lot stronger, deeper motivation. So trying to really identify that deeper why, I think that's huge.
Yeah, huge for sure.
Amazing. All right, past, present, future.
Past, present, future. So we're going to look at your past, present, and future.
Okay.
So first question I have for you is, if you could go back to 20-year-old you and give them advice, what advice would you give them?
I would say you have to, well, you know what? I would say it's never too early to start working on your network, your network. Relationships go a long way. So be careful of how you treat other people because you never know when you have to coexist with them later or when they might pop back up and you might, need something from them or vice versa. And it's funny because my mom used to say that all the time. You know, if I'd have an issue with someone at school, I'd be like, dude, I'm going to tell them to F off. And she's like, yeah, I mean, I support it, but at the same time, be careful how you do it. You don't know when you're going to have to see that person again, right? So maybe the better advice is to listen to your mom.
Much better.
Yeah, I think that's what I would say.
I love that.
All right, next question. The Better Life question. It says, what have you done in the last year that's improved your life? It could be a habit, an action, a new routine. What have you done that's given you a better life this year?
I think it's just focusing more on myself in a way where by focusing on yourself and like putting your health as a priority. So like working out, going for runs and you're putting that into your time blocking. And then also like focusing on the things that make you happy, like spending more time with Rob. Let's say like we'll fit in date days. We try to do it I say every 2 weeks, but it's more like once a month. So we got to work on that. But so by focusing that and then like spending more time with my kids, so by being more present, by doing all those things, it kind of translates into just being a better overall person, right? Because you're focusing your energy where it matters the most to you. So it makes your kids happy, your husband happy, your family, and then your business, you have your time for your business too. So also the other thing too is I don't drink coffee anymore at all because it gives me anxiety. So if I want to manage my anxiety, no coffee. That's been and that's been more than a year now. I've been doing that for maybe 3 years. But that's been a big one. And just focusing when you become a mom, it's a lot harder to put your needs before. You're always putting your kids, and obviously that's fine. But by putting your needs first, it kind of translates back to giving to the rest of your family.
Yeah. Amazing. How do you fit in fitness as a full-time mom and a full-time real estate investor and full-time, wife? How do you fit fitness in? What does it look like for you?
So usually in my focus days, like the 3 days that Max is at daycare, I know that I have to, like if I'm doing 8 to 4 and I'm focusing on something, then I know that my lunch hour will be spent going for a run, going in the shower, and then jumping back in. Yeah. So I'll try to do that. And I know I have to fit in at least 30 minutes 4 times a week. So it's just part of my time blocking habits. And if I don't do it, honestly, the thing is when you get used to working out too, when you don't do it, you feel like crap.
Yeah.
Like, you're not your personality, but your mood changes when you don't do it. So, and Rob knows too, when I haven't worked out in a couple of days, he's like, all right, Nat, go for a workout. You're falling on my nerves. And vice versa. Same thing for him. When he starts getting stressed, I'm like, you haven't been to the gym. And we set up a gym in our garage now. So we try to do it with each other, more often. It motivates each other when we work out together. But you just have to fit it in.
Yeah,
you have to schedule it or else it doesn't get done. I
just decided today in the new house that I'm buying a new house here in Maui. I'm going to build a gym downstairs, like in the garage, that little bay in the garage. And I wasn't really sure because I like going to the gym. I like going to Powerhouse Gym. It's great. But I realized I don't take my kids to Powerhouse Gym. My kids never see me work out. So I decided I'm going to build a gym down there. And then I'm going to build a kids gym next, like in the same room. So there'll be a small little barbell and so when I'm doing whatever it is, I'm going to encourage Rosie and Wilder to come work out with me.
That's awesome.
So even if they can have 5 minutes, they're going to see every day dad works out, not dad leaves and then comes home an hour later and he's sweaty.
We do that too. We take him in the garage with us or wherever. If it used to be in the basement where we'd work out, and like he knows. And sometimes he'll just like randomly start doing push-ups and it's like obviously not push-ups, but he'll do the movement of the push-ups. So it's cool that he sees us doing it, and he, like, for him it'll be the norm.
Yeah.
Like I didn't used to see my parents work out, right? It wasn't normal. So I want that to be part of his normal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the other day, somebody I was with, I don't think it was you, it was somebody we were with, told Wilder's 4, and they're like, hey, Wilder, go down and give us a push-up, show us a push-up. And he looks at me and goes, Dad, what's a push-up?
That was when we came over to the Wailea resort.
Yeah, and I felt like a failure as a dad. I'm like, how have I not showed my kid a push-up at 4 years old? Like, I got to change. So anyway, me and Wilder are going to start working out together.
It's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, that's That's a shame on me for not teaching my kid how to do a push-up.
But I saw you bust out 10 yesterday.
I did.
No problem at all.
I mean, I didn't learn how to do a push-up until I was 10 anyways. So or no, way more than that.
I don't think I knew what a push-up was until I was 30. But all right, moving on. Last question from you.
Someday, unfortunately, we're all going to die, and people are going to get up and talk about you at your funeral. What do you want them to say about you?
Yeah, that's hard too, because it's not something I ever put thought into before, because I guess in a way I didn't really care what people thought. But then, when I was reading the podcast notes, it had me thinking, and I'm like, I guess that if I could, I have 3 nieces. They're going into preteens. If I could motivate them or get them inspired to just be like businesswomen and take action and accomplish their goals, I'll be happy. Like I just if I could have like, if they can see me as a respected businesswoman in the community, let's say, I die happy. That's cool. And
That's
same
awesome.
thing for my kid too, not just for my nieces, but being a role model for them. And also too, if I could find a way to add more community beds for long-term care in my community, I die happy knowing that they can die happy too, right? So that could be cool. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap things up. First, what are you excited about professionally and personally? What's coming up in your life?
Professionally, I guess it would be that book. So I already have my ebook. It's on my website. People can buy it.
What's it called?
It's called The Build and Hold Strategy. It's about 80 pages. It's very easy to read, but it's packed full of everything I know. It's in there. But now I'm working on getting it an actual published version. So I want to be able to have a physical copy, have an audio version, and sell it on Amazon and, be an actual published author. So I would really love to do that. And I've started working on it. I've hired, self-publishing, and I'm working on that,
cool.
but it probably won't launch until, realistically, I'd love it to launch in the fall. But I think it might be more like early 2025. So that's my goal right now. I want to give myself time. I don't want to rush it. But yeah, until then, people can still get the ebook. It's still really good.
That's awesome.
Very cool. Self-Publishing School is a great company. Just throwing that out there. They do a good job. They are not sponsors of the show, but I'm going to call them and make them be sponsors. All right. With that said, last question.
Where can people find you? Where can they find that book at? Where can they find your website, your social media?
So I'm pretty much only on Instagram.
Okay.
I have Facebook. I don't really look at it, but you can send me a message on there too. So it's at The New Build Couple, and then I have the website too at the New Build. Not at, but www.thenewbuildcouple.com. You can find me on there, and hit me up anytime.
Appreciate it. Thank you for coming on the show today. This was a lot of fun. I learned a lot, and I'm fired up to do Build to Rent. So
let's do it.
Yeah, we're gonna do it. It's gonna be
awesome.
Great. All right.
Love it.
Thank you so much, guys.
Boom. 3-way. Boom.
Oh, cool.
And that, my people, is the show. Thank you for tuning in. And hey, before you go, if you enjoyed the episode or if you enjoy the show in general, please consider leaving us a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. We really do value your feedback, and we read the comments. We make future decisions about topics and guests and everything else. Plus, it helps us reach more people the more reviews we get. And last but not least, please head over to social media. Consider friending and following and subscribing to all that stuff at Better Life and my personal page at Beardy Brandon on Instagram, YouTube, and everywhere else. Thank you again for listening. I'm honored that you would bring me along on your journey toward building wealth through real estate investing without losing your soul.